Hello and welcome to an episode of Coffee with SamPaul. Today I'm very excited to be joined by someone who's been in the music industry for a very long time, multi-award, ARIA award winner, and so many great things. I could go on forever. I could do the whole show just talking about what you've achieved and what you've done, but I won't do that. But welcome to the show, Diesel.
Thank you, Sam.
No
I'm good.
That's good. That's good. I had a big plan of how I was going to go with this, but I'm looking in the background and I can see what it looks like, some sort of a recording or rehearsal studio. Is that where you record?
I have been, yeah. I've been doing everything here for like almost like 8 years. Yeah, let's just say 8 years. Yep. I was living up here first. And while we were kind of working on our living space downstairs, and then I sort of figured out what I was going to do with this room and that room and what have you. And yeah, really nice to kind of, after so many years of being kind of, I guess, yeah, the home recording studio has always been very much literally a home recording where I'd be set up guitar amps next to in the bedroom, and I'd have to apologize to my wife, like, sorry, you can't get in the wardrobe right now. I've got an amp there or whatever. And it really didn't bother me. It's like, I know that so many records have been made in houses, not like, particularly technically, proper studios or whatever, like designated studios. So, the sound that you can achieve, is incredible. I guess a lot of people just think, oh, you need soundproof rooms and blah, blah, blah. And it's not really the case. You definitely don't want too much outside noise kind of coming in.
Yeah.
I live near the airport, so occasionally if I'm recording a vocalist who's, singing really quietly or at the very, very end of a passage or something, you can probably hear the jet going across now. But we'll have to just stop for a second, but it really hasn't gotten in the way with me. So it's nice to, it was nice to be able to move all my stuff into one space, and things that were in storage and, all my toys, I guess, for want of a better word, these are my toys, and I finally got to have them all in one place. It was really nice.
Yeah.
And so just to really appreciate everything that I have. And there's some things I collected a long time ago, and it's amazing I've still got them, and others are new in the fold. But it's been I think 30 years of accumulating and beachcombing the world for musical instruments.
Wow.
And it's, when I pick up something, and whether for some reason percussion instruments really kind of ring a lot of bells, no pun intended. But you'll use something, you go, oh wow, that's right, I haven't used this since blah blah blah, that that recording or someone's record. And there's all these jokes that accompany some of the instruments. It's like, well, it's not a record unless this particular blah 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 goes on it. So it's for me, I think the vibra slap is the instrument that not many people would know what that is, but they do, because it's been on so many records. And it's a great transition, kind of just to it just kind of smooths over. It's like in the film world, you do crossfades, or you do this or you do that, and music, you need these little things that kind of just ask anybody who makes electronic music or dance music, and they'll tell you about how transitions are. And it's the same in any genre of music needs those transitional things.
Oh, most definitely.
So that's where the percussion table over there really comes in to its own.
Nice.
And of course, the samples are just so easy to come by these days. It's like, I need a blah blah, 2 seconds moving your fingers on a keyboard and you've got one. I for one have hard drive after hard drive full of sounds, but I still like to use the real things. They definitely have a lot more energy and presence in the track. So this is where I cook up. This is my music lab.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. One of the kind of I guess the angles I was going to kind of come at was, obviously you've been a working musician for a very long time now. So you've seen a dramatic change, you know, as you mentioned before, you know, going into a purpose-built studio as opposed to, you know, what we can accomplish now in our homes pretty much. Do you think that's sort of affected in any way your creative process?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's funny you should say that, because it just really piqued my memory of what happened just a couple of hours ago. A big pallet turned up like from the back of a truck, and I'm like, I don't remember ordering anything this big. And then I remembered there was a pile of tapes that the late great Warren Costello down in Melbourne was the custodian of, and they've come back to me, and they've just turned up here, and it's just mind blowing how big everything was.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just a couple of songs, just the tape needed for like 2 songs, you know, and then your mixers went to another type of tape, a smaller one, but it's still like these big reels. And then just like one album would be just like, you know, a table full of tapes. And that in itself is just like, wow. Some people would say, yeah, you know, tape's the best. It sounds great. It's like, I'm not going to argue with that, but it's really impractical. And so grateful for being able to make music like anywhere with a hard drive as the storage instead of tape. That's the stuff packet of chewing gum, you know, not even that.
Yeah.
You know, and they have this gum called Chiclets, you know, and it's very small, slim packets.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much the size of a packet of Chiclets now, that you can have like 5 gigs of data of storage.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, that coupled with a laptop and a small interface, boom, there you are. You can make a record anywhere. Like,
yeah, that's right.
Anywhere. So I'm really grateful for that, because it started around 1993 for me, when I finally got the first piece of equipment that was bona fide as not like dirty and nasty and kind of demo sounding. And, you know, people were making records or at least EPs on 4-track cassette recorders. You know, PJ Harvey released a record that was completely done on a 4-track. And a lot of people think like Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska was 4-track, but it wasn't a 4-track cassette. That was a 4-track tape machine, you know, with like at least size tape, and they sound beautiful, but it still is I guess the limiting nature of only having four tracks to put your stuff down on. So, you know, I dealt with that for a while and just had the frustration of like, I want to record, you know, for real. I don't want to have to go into a studio anymore every time I have an idea. That was the big issue. It's like, I have an idea for a song. I need to make phone calls and bookings and spend, you know, either the record company's money, which was my money anyway, or my own money, and going to a proper studio and do stuff. And so around 1993, these things called ADATs came in, and they ran off a VHS cassette, which by the time I got to New York, I figured out that I could buy boxes of them down in Canal Street for like pretty cheap. And because you burn through quite a lot of it, but it would give you 8 tracks. And if you had 2 of these machines, you'd have 16 tracks, and so on and so on. You could have up to 32. It was a revolution. And pretty soon after, you know, records like Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette came out, and the word spread through the industry that was done on ADATs, you know, in a whatever, and it was like, oh my God, you don't need to go into big expensive studios anymore. And they sold millions of those units. Like, and I don't think anyone uses them now. You might go to a very remote corner of the globe, where there's very little gear, and maybe they're still using them. I don't know, but I would be surprised, because the advent of the laptop or any kind of computer can do that now. But it was a big deal, because suddenly I could do things, and I could keep stuff, you know. And, you know, I think with the release of Hep Fidelity on vinyl, the 30th anniversary of that, I dug up a bunch of songs that were done on those ADAT recordings, and they sounded, you know, next to the big expensive album that I recorded in Los Angeles and Memphis, you know, they stood up pretty well as a home recording.
Amazing.
So that was a big difference, and suddenly I felt empowered and freed up, and and it just grew from there.
Yeah.
I remember getting the first bit of software. It was Cubase that could do sequencing, run things, and I kept buying the new version. Suddenly I got this box and I had Cubase audio recording. Oh my God, I'm going to be able to do actual audio soon. And of course I never did with Cubase, but which is still a great pro. I ended up with Pro Tools because that's what everyone was using in the studios. And I wanted to, just, continue to do what I was looking over the shoulder of in studios. But that was a big deal. Like, oh my God, this laptop that I've got is going to be actually the thing that records my music soon. It was just starting to trickle through.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of plugins to be had and not a lot of instruments, virtual instruments and all that stuff. It's just wild now what you can do and shape and mold. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm, forever eternally grateful.
Yeah. That's crazy. I do a bit of music myself, and a band I was in many years ago, they had a 4-track recorder, but it wasn't too long after that the digital stuff really started to take off. And yeah, it's insane, like what you can accomplish now, as you said. I am curious to know. I grew up in an era like when you were in Johnny Diesel and the Injectors. And I guess the album was the big thing back then. Artists were writing albums, whereas there seems to be this trend these days. A lot of artists are just pumping out singles, and then the album tends to be just like a culmination of those singles after the fact, so to speak. But I get the impression that you're still writing as an album, like you're still a concept, so to speak, or would that be?
Look, I could easily slip into that mode probably. I think about it and I think, wow, if I wasn't kind of in that album mentality, I like just even in the last couple of weeks, I it could have made something and then just released it. That's kind of ongoing life. But I do like kind of rounding up songs together and giving them some kind of relativity. And, I like the arc that sort of happens when you make a few songs and you get some sort of cohesiveness that you can't really plan it. That's all I know. It just has to happen. And I wish I could tell you how it happens, but I think as long as artists like SZA, for instance, like her album was such an album. Like the minute I was only about 3 tracks into it and I realized this is a great album. It's a really and I said, oh, this is going to get her a Grammy. We went to Taylor Swift, but that's another conversation. But I just felt like a really solid and just conceptualized and realized album.
Yeah. Oh,
I just think as long as it's happening, the idea of, like 40 or so minutes of someone's life being, preordained to sit down and listen to something, it's not going to go away. I don't think.
Yeah. No, that's great. While I was sort of preparing to have a chat with you, you mentioned Taylor Swift a moment ago. I did see a video of you performing one of her songs. That was fantastic. You're a bit of a fan?
I've always realized that she's a really talented songwriter, and the way she's navigated from country to pop to alt folk to she just kind of goes wherever she wants seemingly, and because she's a great songwriter, and that's it. And I can't say that I've digested, like I'm not as much of a massive fan as some people that I know in that sort of obsessed way, but I definitely like that particular song. Once I started unpacking it, I just realized that there was a lot of sentiment and a lot of like every line was really essential and really potent, and in the lyric department, and I really liked the way the chords were so it had this and beautiful ambiguity to them that you don't always get. It's sometimes it's so kind of obvious what's going to happen and stuff, but I had to really kind of put myself inside that song to kind of well, finding an open tuning, which is where I ended up. I just thought I'm going to try an open tuning and see what happens. And it was like, oh, okay, this seems to be the key for me at least. And that's when it started to like make sense, when I found an open A. Sort of was open A, but it had a weird sort of like I call it anything that's like these augmented sort of things in the inside the tuning. It's I call them like Joni Mitchell tunings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, some of Joni's tunings are just like so unorthodox, incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I wasn't really aware of tunings too much when I was younger, but as I've got older, some of the artists that I've listened to, like they've got some unusual tunings. Like I think Tool's a good example that have used some interesting tunings, and even some later Silverchair stuff. I do like the difference that it brings to the table, you know, than your standard kind of tuning of a.
It does. It gives it a different atmos, I think. Like when you play that same song, you go, look, I'm going to do this without the open tuning, and you get it, you know, you go, that one's a major, that one's a minor, this one's sort of like a half and half, like of this chord, and then they change the bass note. You can sort of work through it and get versions of those chords, but it's almost like it just really straightens it out and makes it kind of, I wouldn't say boring, but it's just like something, the secret sauce is missing.
And,
you know,
I love that phrase, secret sauce.
I mean, Alex G, he hardly uses standard tunings. And yeah, I mean, if you want to try to play an Alex G song, you've got to get the tuning. Otherwise, it's just like not going to happen. You know, it's like there's a brick wall there. It's one of the, and Joni was the same. Like whenever I've tried to play a Joni song, it's if you find the tuning, then it all, it's like Aladdin's cave. It just kind of opens up and the cave of wonders, you know. But without that, it's just like access denied.
Oh, that's funny. Do you ever play any of these sort of you know, covers that you jammed out like when you perform live, or do you strictly stick to your own kind of catalog? Because you do have a pretty extensive, you know, catalog.
It's hard. I've got like at the moment I'm doing this tour, and I feel like I have a lot of time because I've got 2 sets and, you know, with an interval in between, but I feel like I'm still struggling to get my own stuff in there that I, you know, believe people want. So it's just the spare slots are very few and far between.
I can imagine.
But yeah, it's nice to kind of like, even if you just play a little passage of it, it's kind of fun. Sometimes just do that as a little taster, you know. That's why they invented the medley. To fit more songs.
That's it.
But that'd be the easy solution for me. Just do a medley of all my you know, singles, at least. Just do a single medley. I'll save it for Las Vegas time.
Actually, one of the things I was reading about that I wasn't aware of when I was a young kid is that you've got a pretty heavy background in sort of blues music from your, I think it was your father's sort of record collection, and something about because I come from a sampling background a little bit with my music, and they talked about the early sampling was actually done in the blues, in the sense that, say for example, you were someone I looked up to, I might chuck a little, you know, medley of some of your riffs into one of my songs, almost like a tribute, but it's kind of like an early version of sampling. Is that something that you would have done perhaps maybe in the early days, like when you were coming up as a young musician, like played a bit of blues that you were inspired by, influenced by?
Yeah, I mean, I did it in such an analog way. Like I just needed to like fortify my set when I first started, and I did other bands before that, but not as the front person, not as the, you know, the person curating the catalog, you know, the repertoire. And suddenly I felt this pressure of, you know, fattening it out to at least you know, an hour's worth of music, which was a big deal back then. You know, when we first went on the road after we recorded our first, we had a few covers and that sort of filled things up, but we only had that one album to play, you know. And so I went back before we even got anywhere near the recording studio. I went to my dad's house, and it was easy to go to my dad's house because I'd moved back in with my parents because I was so broke. So I didn't have to didn't have to go very far to get to the
Yeah.
record collection. I was actually sleeping in the lounge room because they took over my bedroom as like an office storeroom for their business that they ran out of the house. And I was like, it's cool. I'll sleep on the mattress on the floor in the lounge, and I'd go to sleep with headphones on, coming home really late. And it was probably better because I didn't wake them up so much, like sneaking into the front of the house. But I just went through and picked stuff that whether I realized it or not, songs that have stuck with me as from a really young age. Like Since I Fell for You, that was definitely one. And I'm still kind of rummaging through those early memories with the blues record that I made in lockdown alone. Blues. I put Hoochie Coochie Man on that, and it's a real standard, but I'd never recorded it before, and that was a song that I remember we used to play like way back as a filler. My dad had various versions of it. He had jazz versions of it. He had an organ version of it, and I've always liked the lyric in that song. It's just got so much swagger, and so those things, they really stick with, those early memories are very powerful. And I wasn't really too concerned about what was the thing at the time. Like, it was probably quite uncool to like music that was, old, or I guess, more retro music and at that point. And like this, I mean, I was like a 19-year-old human, so I was kind of swimming against the tide, loving all this older music. But that was from my dad mostly, and growing my siblings who are all older than me, because I'm the youngest of 7. So growing up, their record buying, they started buying records themselves, and I'm definitely a product of all of that. So I mean, people are, at that point they were like, how come you know all this stuff about music from, it's had many resurgences, and many, you keep seeing young people that are like just so deep in the blues emerging, and that I think they will continue to emerge. And it's music that is, without a doubt, it sort of was the basis of everything that happened after that. So it really is all, as Willie Dixon said, the blues are the roots, and everything else are the fruits.
Makes sense.
Right to the prodigy.
I should probably mention that
I was to think that really is, from that came that, and then that came that, and then that came, just wow.
100%. I should probably mention, of course, you did allude to it earlier, that you're currently on the Forever Tour, or just kicking off the Forever Tour.
We did kick it in again, and we're going to Adelaide, Perth, Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, the Opera House, just beautiful around the country.
And that's previewing your new album, Bootleg Melancholy.
Playing a few songs off that. I do a bit of blues. I do hits from every record. Well, I try to get something from every record. And it's I feel it's probably the most all-rounded show that I've ever done for me. I feel I think having the double bass on stage too is a real kind of game changer for me. It just gives me this whole nother, like, I love playing guitars, and I played tons of guitar through the night. You walk out, get, copping an earful, as they say. But the double bass is another muse for me, and it's where I started. And a lot of people maybe don't know that, but I went from cello to bass, then to guitar.
Oh, wow.
So
that's incredible.
It's a really beautiful sound that kind of also gives people's ears a nice rest, because it lives in a different frequency range, because it goes from that to like really brash electric guitar to beautiful nylon string. I've got a lot of different animals on the road. It's Yeah, it's kind of like a miniature version of my studio that I build on stage when I do these shows. It's kind of
Oh,
like
wow.
a
That's crazy.
sound laboratory.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome, mate. Listen, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you're a busy man, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with me, sharing some incredible insight, and obviously wishing you the best with the new tour. I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely incredible show for everyone that attends, and yeah, all the best with the new album as well.
Thank you. It's
Do you
feeling
have a
extra
release date?
special.
Sorry?
The album came out in October, the end of
October,
October.
yep. No worries. I was
Yeah.
just looking at a promo and it says previewing a new album, but I wasn't sure if you'd actually dropped it yet. But
I guess new album, but it's not unreleased. It's released. It's out there.
Yeah, cool. My bad there. But yeah, I hope it continues to do well, and that you continue to produce your incredible music. You certainly were a big part of my childhood when I was growing up. You know.
It is.
So
Well,
it's
yeah.
Oh,
Make it to it.
yeah, I definitely see what I can do. I'm in Adelaide myself, so I'll see if I can get along to the Adelaide show for sure.
Yeah, that's a room. It's a beautiful room, the Dunstan Theatre. I've yet to do it, but everyone says it's beautiful, and
Yeah,
I'm really looking for Adelaide. People have not seen me for a really long time due to the pandemic, and it's like I know the other side of all that and stuff, but it's just it hasn't happened for no particular reason at all. But I'm really looking forward to getting back to good old Radelaide.
We're looking forward to having you, mate.
Yeah.
So, all right, mate.
Cheers.
Well, thank you again, and yeah, hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Man, thank you for your time.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure.
No worries.